I'm now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is our good friend, Josh Pate. Josh, I thought about saying to open, how's the offseason treating you? But then I worried that you would just kind of like hang up the Zoom call and our friendship would be over because I said the word offseason, which I realized like you're getting really triggered just hearing me say that. So for this 8-month period, whatever you want to call it, you are essentially Michigan and Ohio State fans during rivalry week. Like Ohio State fans, they cross out the X anytime they want to use anything involving an M word, and then Michigan fans crossing out the O. Have you had to use like shock therapy to train yourself not to say the word off season, or has this been something that's been instilled in you since birth?
Well, it has become a lifestyle. Let me turn my phone off. It has become a lifestyle. So I don't slip up hardly anymore, except I think last week we were on air. We were doing like a Late Kick Live episode, and it just came out about 3/4 of the way. I got to off seat, and then I stopped myself. And I had this moment on air where the rest of you might as well have just gone and taken a break and done something, because I started to chastise myself and I started to ridicule myself. And it was the kind of talk that, like when you're in the shower and maybe you're weird like me, you just talk out your day, and then you're brushing your teeth and you talk out your day, but no one's listening. I had one of those moments, but we just had the entire audience watching live. It was not my best moment. It was not my worst moment, but it was a moment.
You're not Pate State material anymore.
No, I wasn't that day. I was JUCO at best that day.
Oh my gosh. Well, I hate to hear that. Really, really sorry to hear that this 8-month period is not going well for you. I'm just going to use that word as much as possible now. I think that's what we're going to do the rest of the interview. It's just see how this goes and see if I can get you upset. Who's the winner of the offseason so far? And there are no wrong answers except for Nebraska.
So look, let's just go ahead and have it out about Nebraska. Okay. So I am Red in Shawshank, and you are pre-escape Andy Dufresne. You're the dude who thinks hope is lost, and anyone who dares smile around here needs to be eradicated entirely from the planet. I, on the other hand, look at Nebraska, sweet, innocent, stroke them on the cheek, Nebraska, and I say, it is June. Why can't these people have some hope? These are salt of the earth people. I selfishly would love for Nebraska to be good this year. I would love to be able to go to Lincoln to see that Oklahoma game in week 3. They have to do things like beat Northwestern before that can happen. Mm-hmm. But I look around and I think to myself, to be more real about it, I think, okay, everyone knows they went 3-9. It's like someone feels the need to remind me every time I talk Nebraska. Well, they went 3-9 last year. Yeah, my internet works. My TV worked last year. I saw them go 3-9. I know they weren't blowout in fashion. And so I've seen the turnarounds happen before. I know I created my own imaginary statistic called Bob plays, which is an acronym, stands for bounce of ball plays, where I can reasonably explain away these sorts of things if I need to help prop up my argument. I just think about Nebraska. It's not that I need them to make the playoff or anything. All I have done is merely suggest, hey, they could win 7 games this year, and people want to attack me. And I just don't get it. And now I'm going to be honest. You've used the O word. You brought up Nebraska in the first 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. I feel attacked.
That's the point. The entire point of this interview was to make me the alpha. Nobody, if you're not watching this at home on YouTube, whatever, and you're just listening to this, I am the one wearing the white t-shirt. Let the record show. Like, I showed up ready to go in full Pate State uniform here. I think that as someone, so I spent 2.5 years in Nebraska. I went to all those home games. I worked and communicated with all the Nebraska faithful. I watched the narratives and all the offseason chatter. I live in Orlando, so I've consumed a lot of Scott Frost stuff as well, both before, during, and after. I've read the Mike Bianchi column saying it was a mistake for him to go to Nebraska. Like, I've seen this on all different sides. 0-13 against top 25 opponents, man. That is the thing that I continue to come back to with this Nebraska program. I don't care if you're up 14 points with 5 minutes left and you have everything working. And I like Casey Thompson too. Like, I'm a Casey Thompson believer. I would have liked to have seen him get maybe a little bit more of a chance at Texas. I realized the Quinn Ewers thing, whatever. But at the same time, you can give Scott Frost a 14-point advantage, 5 minutes left in the game. He's going to find a way to blow it. And that's why he hasn't beat any of these good teams yet. Okay, so this is the Bob stat that you're talking about. Talk your way out of this.
Okay, so I'm raising my hand politely, and I've been called upon here.
Ada.
All right, so let's let's just think ahead. Let's say that Scott Frost does nothing more than slightly improve this year.
Okay.
To where, yeah, he's still struggling against quote unquote top 25 teams. The thing about Nebraska's schedule, as you well know, and as everyone who has looked at their schedule knows, they could theoretically go over against top 25 teams this year and still win 7 games.
That's true.
That's the way the schedule lines up. So did you know, what have I told you? What if I told you, you and I just agreed on Nebraska and you don't even know it?
Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. No. Because I didn't sign up for them beating every non-top 25 team as well. This whole, you could be up 14 points against a team who's actually worth its weight in crap actually matters as well when you're playing Northwestern and you can't close out no matter who it is. And that's the problem that I continue to have is like, you can tell me Mark Whipple's going to run this offense and he's going to do great things. I still would worry about Scott Frost in those last few minutes doing something ridiculously stupid. You can't trust them to be able to capitalize on those little things in special teams. I realize we're getting way too in the weeds here about Nebraska. There are so many people listening to this being like, dude, get to the SEC stuff. We will, I promise you. But I think we might just have to agree to disagree on this. I'll put Nebraska's ceiling at 6 wins just to spite you.
Okay, I'll take the over. If you'll give me 6 wins, I'll take the over because I think 7 is the number. Let me ride the fence to endear myself to Husker Nation. 7 minimum. That's the phrase I'm looking for. 7 minimum.
Yeah. Okay, I'm saying 6 floor. You're saying, or I'm saying 6 ceiling. You're saying 7 floor.
Remember, Red, hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things.
I was going to go, if you're going to really talk about like who's winning the offseason, like I think you can make a case, Jimbo or Lincoln Riley, Marcus Freeman, Brian Kelly. I made the joke before we came on about like, hey, why don't you come on the pod and we can overanalyze some Saban quotes and see what he's warning us about. I don't think anybody would say that Saban is particularly dominant this offseason. We could listen to Saban say the words, I really like the depth in our quarterback room. And we'd be like, wow, Saban is telling us that he's going to have the number 1 offense in college football. I think Saban just kind of messed up with the A&M Jackson State stuff. If you watch the full 7-minute answer, what he said was at the very end of it. And I'm pretty sure all the cameras besides AL.com had left at that point. Jim Dunaway told me, yeah, as soon as Saban said that, you can see me looking around to see if there are any cameras that are still there. Because once I saw that there was at least 1 camera there, I saw it was going to be a big deal. Saban sort of losing his bearings for a minute, that in itself wasn't Pate State material.
Okay, so as soon as I saw the quote, I thought it was one of those troll accounts, or a lot of people have been hacked on Twitter lately. Like I legitimately just thought someone who is a verified account had been hacked. So 2 hours go by before the footage starts surfacing. And I looked and I said, yeah, that's Nick Saban. Okay. The next thing I thought is there is no way he knows a camera is rolling in this room. And so I got in touch with some folks at Alabama the next day, and they said, no, he did not know. Now he still takes full responsibility. Like as soon as he walked off the stage, he knew, man, I should have said that. So yeah. I think he went public and apologized the next day or whatever. But here's what I have experienced. I know you've been in these settings too, maybe with Saban, maybe with a myriad of other coaches. When you're in the closed setting, when you're in the speaking engagement circuit, not media days, but like the true X season, I'm going to go talk to my fans and my boosters in a closed setting sort of deal. Coaches talk like that all the time. That's the kind of stuff they say. I remember a while back, there was like a signing day event at LSU, and Les Miles said, I guess we got a new rival in effing Alabama. And it's like that kind of stuff, if you've been in those settings, is ho-hum. But if someone happens to be rolling with an iJosh or an actual camera, man, it lights the world on fire. And of course, it was the perfect topic at the perfect time. But yeah, Saban didn't win anything. I think Jimbo Fisher has done what Lincoln Riley should do. Jimbo Fisher has embraced the heel persona. You see, people don't want to like Jimbo Fisher, and he said, screw it, I don't even care if you like me. My folks like me. It's like Bret Hart circa 1997. If the folks in Canada like me, I don't care what someone in St. Paul, Minnesota thinks about me or Muscle Shoals, Alabama. Well, Jimbo's kind of the same way. The folks in College Station revere him, and the Aggie fan base is willing to go over the cliff for him. His roster is willing to do the same. Players are willing to go play for him. Does he really care what anyone else thinks? I think Lincoln Riley should be the same way. SoCal and NoCal. And I don't mean Northern. So you're either with us or I don't really care what you think. I think Jimbo Fisher has won this thing. I did a top 5 the other day of how I perceive the most powerful coaches in college football right now, which is far more than just your win-loss resume. I don't think Jimbo Fisher was in there until recently. I think this whole NIL thing and portal thing and how much weight his voice seems to be carrying right now on the issue, on top of just the gold mine that potentially he's sitting on out there. I think he's one of the 5 most powerful coaches in the sport right now.
Did Dabo move up in your rankings after you saw him hit a turnaround jumper?
Yeah, so that's happened post-ranking, and he was already at 2. If Nick Saban has a couple more hot mic moments and Dabo stays hot from, 12, 14 feet, yeah, I think that could happen. That had Ray Allen Game 6 vibes to me. I mean, pressure's on Dabo, unlike Saban, knows the camera's rolling because as soon as it goes down, he knows where that camera is. That, Dabo does not seem to be quite as concerned about his public persona as the rest of the country seems to be concerned about his public persona. He seems to just be living it up right now.
Yeah, Lars Anderson's book does a really good job of showing you who Dabo is, despite the fact that Lars Anderson, like you said on this podcast last year, didn't even interview Dabo for, just talked to tons of people who knew him well. And that's one thing you never have to worry about with Dabo is he is unapologetically himself. I think we still have the same questions about him and what the next decade looks like and him adapting to this world of college football where his way, he's going to have to at some point make that fork in the road decision. And some would say it should have come 2 years ago with the way the transfer portal is heading. But I don't know that you could put Dabo at number 2 on that list if he's going to essentially be a quiet non-factor in the early part of the offseason. See, I snuck it in there again for you with the transfer portal. Is he someone that you now find yourself having more questions about than ever? Because I definitely do.
Yeah, I think fork in the road is the best metaphor. I think they invented that. Whoever put the fork in the road knew Dabo's 2022 season was coming at some point. Have we ever, I'm looking at a chalkboard right now. I don't know why I'm pretending to look off in the distance, but have we ever had a coach who didn't inherit a title program? He built the thing himself using a pretty unique model, let's be honest, and won 2 titles against the greatest coach in the history of ball at the absolute peak of his dynasty, and yet still said, well, we got questions about him still. Yeah. It's such a unique situation to be in, but I do think if we think about the Clemson run under Dabo in terms of chapters, I think this is absolutely a new chapter. Now, the fact of the matter is they could go 8 wins the rest of his duration there, and he's still got a heck of a legacy at Clemson. He's done things that, for all I know, no one else in the future of Clemson will ever do. But yeah, I think it's fair to have questions. I think if you injected some truth serum in him and we're actually able to get him on the record, I think it's human nature for him to have questions himself about where they're going. I think he's got confidence. I don't have as much confidence in where they are right now as I bet he does. I looked at it last year, and I thought that place feels stale to me. Talked to some folks close to the program. They said, while they may not have gone that far, they kind of met me 40% of the way and said, we probably do need some fresh ideas. We probably do need some roster churn. This whole thing we tout all the time about ourselves, about how we never lose anyone. Maybe we do need some folks to move on and some new faces to come in here. Well, he didn't do that. And not only did he promote from within at both coordinator positions, I think his quote was something like, it didn't take me more than 10 seconds to figure this out. I didn't like that personally. He knows his program better than I do. But yeah, I think we're absolutely at a point where I asked myself out loud the other day, this is the downside of not having a co-host. I just asked myself out loud, do I think in 5 years, Dabo has ascended to number 1 on that list because Saban has retired and he's also got Clemson back on track simultaneously? Or do I think that we've seen the peak of Dabo Swinney and 2 is the highest he ever gets? And 5 years from now, he's not even in the top 5. Who knows if he's at Clemson? I think this is that big a turning of the chapter sort of deal for Clemson right now.
It is a fascinating year, and I'm very eagerly awaiting kind of this next step of what this entire era could look like surrounding him. Whereas you go to certain other programs and you feel like, all right, we know what we're going to get. Arkansas. Oh, you're raising your hand. Yeah. Yes, Josh. You in the front row.
I've just observed audibly lately that people talk over each other on these things all the time. So I just want to raise my hand. Not on this show, mind you. Of course not on this show, but just in general. So it's something that's bugging me about the medium as of late. So I think that when we're talking in these terms, you think about it taking a season or multiple seasons for this to play out. Dude, I want to give you a scenario right now. It's Monday, it's Labor Day, Monday night. Clemson and Georgia Tech play the standalone game that night. What if it's halftime of the Georgia Tech game and it's like 9-7 and their offense is bogged down again and it doesn't look any different than it was last year? And let's say they go into the second half and it's sloppy and they're +2 turnovers and they end up winning like 16-13 over Georgia Tech. I mean, if they lose, it's catastrophic. But if they win even in an ugly fashion, and DJ does not light the world on fire. He's like 13 for 27, 1-to-1 touchdown to INT ratio. They're horrible in the red zone. This stuff we're talking about, it's happening in week one. People are talking about change at the quarterback position, bringing Klubnik week one. People are talking about he has swung and missed totally. This is a disaster of a coordinator shift in week one. So maybe they win 38-13 and it's no big deal. But, dude, we never know what to expect in week one. This stuff could start playing out as soon as week one.
I like that take. It's very true because that carries over. Like people aren't going to all of a sudden be like, you know what? The offensive line was really bad. True freshman starting running back, no. This carries over 100%. And in that spotlight, if people are just blasting the Clemson offense again, yes, I think that change would absolutely come, and it would come even quicker than the Kelly Bryant, Trevor Lawrence deal back in 2018, where that was like first 4 games. I mean, they were going back and forth, and it was really kind of a 2 quarterback system. I agree. I think they would make that change really, really early on. I want to talk the Sam Pittman contract with you. If you didn't see the news, you're listening to this, if you didn't see the news last week, Sam Pittman has a new deal, $5 million base salary. It's got all those incentives in there. Basically, if he wins 7 games, he gets like a $250,000 raise and an extra year added to his deal, which runs through 2026. He cannot leave for any other SEC job. And it's still an incentive-based buyout, 75% of the remaining contract, or 50% if he's got a sub 500 record, which could actually just be like 7.5 million if he's fired after 2023, which is kind of crazy to think about in this era of the 8-figure buyout. Josh, I think when we saw that he switched representation to Jimmy Sexton, that Pittman, I think maybe there was this assumption, I know I definitely had it, that he was going to get like a Will Muschamp deal. And instead he gets like a Mark Stoops deal that looks like a win for all parties. Were you as high on the contract as I was?
Yeah, I think it's a blueprint. I don't know necessarily that every program is going to be in a position to carry that out because of how unique the situation is. But, I think that all parties involved observed recent history, i.e. Ed Orgeron. I think Orgeron is the perfect comparable data point in the market right now because Orgeron was equipped to be the head coach at one program and one program only. It fantastically worked in 2019. It bombed totally in 2020. It's not that Sam Pittman's track record has to play out like that, but in terms of fit, these are puzzle pieces now, and there's one place they interlock. Sam Pittman interlocks with Arkansas and vice versa. I think everyone in the room understood that. And so I just think that there were some frank conversations, no matter who his representation was going to be. I think there were some frank conversations, and they understood, look, I'm not threatening to go anywhere, but I also just had a great season. And Arkansas prints cash anyways. So they're saying, we're not about to penny pinch you. We're going to make you the highest paid coach in program history. But look, we're looking at our neighbors in the SEC West alone. One of them is paying $21 million for their guy to coach at UCF. One of them's paying 16 some odd million dollars for their guy to do who knows what, probably ride a fan boat around Lake Pontchartrain today. And we don't want to be there. We don't expect to be there, but who knows what the future holds. I think it is a great mutual testament to both parties involved there. I just hope for the sake of my appreciation for not lighting money on fire, that more programs are able to adopt this. It's just wild to me. And I remember thinking this at the time. This is not revisionist history. It is wild to me that anyone, Jimmy Sexton or otherwise, was able to get Will Muschamp, that kind of buyout, added into his contract when there's no leverage. Where's Will Muschamp going? Like where? He's already had a shot at Florida. South Carolina was not his first go around. So he's already had a shot. He got fired. He gets another shot at South Carolina. It's not like he's winning 10 or 11 games. He's not going anywhere. And yet they still got played. And LSU still got played with Ed Orgeron. There's no galaxy wherein Ed Orgeron leaves LSU even after that title win in 2020. So I think everyone understands that at Arkansas. It's a really good deal. And now I think it's going to be popular to root for Sam Pittman in Arkansas. It's kind of an underdog story within their division anyway. But I think people want to see. I want to see that contract get maximized in terms of its value, so that other people follow suit.
In general, I agree. And that gets thrown out there a lot. I know Andy Staples is a big proponent of that, of who are you actually negotiating against. I think for the most part, and especially in this Arkansas situation, like makes sense. Definitely does. The only pushback that I would have to that, and I'm not even saying that Arkansas falls in this camp, but like Rich Rodriguez is one that comes to mind. Go back to when he is starting to take off at West Virginia. I'm not saying West Virginia could have put together all the money in the world to keep him, but if they had like gone real big with him, and in hindsight, like obviously like Richard Rodriguez flamed out of Michigan, but all of a sudden like West Virginia is like, well, crap, Bama wants him, Michigan wants him. What if we had just been able to kind of do right by him and give him that deal that he just couldn't walk away from? I think those things, you can't look into the crystal ball and obviously see this, but it is kind of an interesting question of like, what can these buyouts become? Like I was talking to our mutual friend, Brad Crawford, about this, not to brag, but Brad was my coworker before he was yours. So, whatever. Brad was saying how great it would be if all contracts were constructed like this, which in theory, like it makes sense. I think if you were dealing with coaches and not agents, you could sell them on the incentive-based raise, the incentive-based buyouts. But I think agents have tilted the market with all of these 10-year guaranteed deals too much. So I think that Pittman's contract now is like 2 or 3 years too late to become the norm, at least across the board, because now if Mel Tucker's getting 10 years guaranteed, I think that's just kind of the way that this is heading. So you got your hand raised. How do you feel about this whole deal?
So also there's this other baby elephant in the room that could become a giant elephant in time. No one knows where player compensation is going.
Great point.
I am of the belief that the SEC, or maybe the Big Ten and the SEC may be moving towards a world where they understand, in order to make sure NIL doesn't burn the sport to the ground as we know it, we're going to need to get proactive like we should have 20 years ago. And we're about to sign these massive TV deals. The SEC already has, the Big Ten is about to any millisecond now. And those TV deals, for those unfamiliar, all you need to know is every member institution in those conferences will be cashing about a $100 million check per year just because they have an SEC helmet sticker on and that TV contract says so. So and this is where it ties into coaching salaries. It has been for a while that universities and programs have felt free to spend exorbitant amounts of money on facilities and coaching salaries because they didn't want to turn massive profits, kind of like a shell game. It looks terrible if you're sitting on a profit that fat and your players aren't being paid. I don't care what your opinion on it is. Don't care what mine is. I'm just saying it looks bad if we're sitting there on a massive war chest of money and my fullback's not making a dime. So what did we do? Well, we built waterfalls in our facilities, and we pay coordinators $2 million a year and coaches $8 million a year. And we put all these buyout clauses in because it doesn't matter. We're like the federal government. We just print money and it doesn't really matter. There's no fiscal responsibility tied to it. Well, if there's a future where we know we're going to have, and I use this term loosely, a workforce that we may have to pay, do we get a little more responsible on the spending side of things internally? And if this is becoming an NIL game on the recruiting end, and a lot more of our financial resources need to be dedicated to that, do we also stop investing or hiding so much of our financial assets in coaching salaries and facilities? And do we start concentrating it more towards the player pool? Those are just some things to think about when we're talking about how future salaries are constructed. No one knows. It's still foggy. So no one really knows how that turns out.
You don't know this, but Jay Bilas is just in the front pew, just at the Pate State Church, wherever it is, just hands raised, like head down, just feeling the gospel right now.
I know I'm saying some things that Jay Bilas says. Jay Bilas and I are not necessarily
You're not at all
singing from the same hymnal on this, if you will, because I think about it, and you can tell every time I talk about NIL or anything of that nature, I have trepidation in my voice. Bilas has his shirt off and he's slicing his chest with a machete and he's just screaming into the jungle like the guy in Predator. We all remember what happened to him, by the way. I just think there are some folks who wave the flag of players' rights. I think their intentions are noble enough, but I think sometimes people wave that flag of player rights and total free market, and they don't really understand what they're asking for. That's just what I get scared about. I'm not against players making money. In fact, almost no one has come out and said, I don't want players to make money, even though that's the accusation. Yeah, like everybody says they want players to make money. I don't know anyone on the record right now saying, nope, they need to come here and just value that scholarship. That was an old school way of thinking. No one verbalizes that anymore. But what some people, myself included, do look at is, boy, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of gymnastics, but I'd like for it to be around for as long as we can have it around. And if you really want to go free market, then let's talk about free market. If that's not a revenue generator in the free market, it dies. So how free market do you want to go with all this? That's all I ask.
Let's get a little weird. You're a big storm chasing guy. Who is the best storm chasing team this year? Like the team that you can't take your eyes off of, but it's a natural disaster. And I see it with you leaning back right now. You're like, I'm so upset I didn't come up with this as a segment because it was just sitting right there for you and you didn't have it.
Look, I'll steal it. I don't care. I love stealing things. In fact, the segment about Arkansas, I stole from Crawford. So you say he came on the show, I just stole it from him. No big deal. I'm going to go Texas.
There you go.
And I think this is an easy answer. It's great storm chasing country. But I also think that however it goes at Texas this year, I think that is the most interesting program to watch. Easily among the majors, it's the most interesting program to watch because there are so many ingredients in the blender, but they haven't hit blend yet. They just threw a bunch of pieces in from the transfer portal and they took a bunch of pieces out. They've overturned something like 40% of their roster from last year to this year. And it's just, you've got the number one quarterback from 2 cycles ago in there. We think he's going to start. We got a couple of receivers from Alabama. I don't think that they'll necessarily see the field as early as some do. I'm just going to leave that there. But there are a lot of new pieces, okay? A lot of new pieces there. Everyone thinks it's going to blend out into this perfect smoothie. Well, not everyone. A lot of people do. And I think there's still going to be some volatility there. That's going to be a team that when they're on, i.e. the first quarter of Red River last year, you look at them and you say, my goodness, Sark, not 1, not 2, not 3. He's going to do the LeBron title count. But then you get to the second half of that same game. It's like, who hit the e-brake? Are we going to score again? What's going to happen? So I think it's Texas, man. It could be a total boom or bust situation for them.
The smoothie, you're a big protein shake guy, I assume, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. The smoothie is going to have some chunks in it. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like that's, I think it's fair to say, especially from a defensive standpoint, like they're not turning that around year one. My choice would be Auburn. Now, you could probably say this in most years, so I'm kind of defaulting here a little bit, but this is going to be wild. I think I'm going to make a little bit of a comp for you. I want to see where you stand on this. And I don't want to trigger Auburn fans by saying this. When I covered Bo Pelini, I remember going into that final year, 2014, he had the cat stuff where he's holding out the cat at the spring game. Yeah. Unbelievable, like funny all-time moment. He's doing the faux Pelini thing. He's playing into that. And it almost seemed like there was a perception change among the fan base that offseason. Like he was doing this speaking tour across the state. And I remember talking to fans about how he had sort of like won them over with some of his personality initiatives. But that was easy to say in May. And remember, it's the offseason. I told you I was going to say it as much as I could. So for those who can't see, Josh is plugging his ears right now. When games happen, though, it's like, oh, that's right. This is why we're not happy, because we can't beat anyone who matters. And this guy is spiraling constantly. I think Harsin has some 2014 Bo Pelini vibes to him. I love what he's doing in the offseason, more active on social media. He's got the podcast that's ahead of yours right now. He's trying to show the world.
Sure. Finish your question. Hurry up.
He's trying to show the world that he's not like, the outsider that kids hate playing for. But the latter half of that schedule is just loaded, and I would still be worried about that quarterback room. So I tried to sneak in like 4 different jabs at you there. Do you think he gets a year 3 is my question.
So as I bleed out of my ribs here, let me see how much into this answer I can get. I get the comparison. Everybody watched what happened to him in January and February. I did not think he was going to be retained. It just felt like the energy had shifted so radically in the room. I didn't think he was going to be the head coach there. Well, he made it through. because he had the stones to A, not cut his vacation short, and B, say, I'm going to make you prove it. You know that, right? I'm not just going to let everyone assume what you're saying about me is right. So good for him. He stood up for himself and he gets his second year there. I think he's done everything he can possibly do off the football field over the past few months. I made the suggestion, when he got this stuff sorted out, I remember there was like a Monday or a Tuesday, and he did like 3 or 4 shows. He did a talk circuit like I haven't seen him do before. And I remember thinking to myself, dude, he seems kind of natural at this. Why doesn't he do this more? Because normally the guys who avoid media hate it and they're not good. And they know that. It's a weak side of them, of their characteristics, personality. So he did it and it seemed natural. I said, man, he should do that more. I think the Auburn folks realized that too. And the folks that kind of run the PR side of things for him said, you need to get out there. Because we know there's a portion, over in the corner of this fan base and this donor class that is hell bent to get you out of here. That's not going to change.
Yeah.
But what we can do is we can at least change the way that the 90% over here think about you. Now, everyone knows, including him, it's ultimately going to come down to wins and losses. And if he wins 5 games this fall, it's not going to matter. What I think he understands and what I think they're trying to effort right now is if they land in that 7 to 8 win range, and it's like a 50-50 proposition whether he's going to remain as the head coach there for a third campaign, what he's doing right now could tip the scales. That's what they're trying to do, I think. They're not trying to salvage the 5 and 7 aftermath. They know what that brings for them. And if you go 9 and 3, who cares? It's a moot point. But if they're 7 and 5, 8 and 4, I think they're trying to get a third season guaranteed in that sense. And also, you mentioned their schedule. I counted 4 games where I'm pretty sure they'll be favored. And then that's it. They got like Mercer, San Jose State, Missouri at home, and Western Kentucky. And outside of that, I don't know if they're going to be favored at Mississippi State. Even if they are, it's not like a big favorite situation. They could lose every other one of those games. And so that is a brutal schedule. It always is. I have no clue what quarterback is for them right now. I don't think they do either. I mean, if they had to announce their starter today, they would flip a coin, I think, probably like a 3-sided coin, to be honest with you. So I get the comparison with Pelini, but we know how his season ended. We can't know with Harsin yet. So it's kind of like we're in the middle of the book.
I've got a proposal for you. Have you come out yet and predicted Tennessee to upset Georgia, or was it Tennessee Bama that you were talking yourself into?
Well, what I said was I had a viewer who predicted Tennessee's going to be undefeated going into that game.
Okay.
And the way it happens here is we put on the lower third the prediction, but we don't put who said it. And so when we clip it halfway through the segment, all you see on Twitter is me talking. And then the lower third says prediction. Tennessee undefeated when they play Bama. Tennessee potentially upsets Bama. So, yeah, it's gotten out there into the CFB ether that I have predicted it, but I have not quite yet.
Okay, so this is like when I was a little bit nervous to do karaoke for the first time when we were at SEC Media Days this past year. So I had my guy, Ty Richardson, who you know well. I had him do Friends in Low Places with me. And I was, I'm a little bit nervous right now to say that I think Tennessee upsets Georgia this year. But I feel like if you can get on board with that, we can just take on all the haters together. We'll get up on stage, we'll do Garth, and we'll do it right.
Did you hit the lowest point? Like, and I'll be okay. Can you do that?
Yeah. It's easier to go for the low than to go for the high all day. Like,
really?
Yeah. Because you can just get to a certain place with the mic where it just kind of sounds a little bit better and you could just kind of muffle it more. Whereas if you're going for the high, you've really got to pull it away. Watch people in concert when they go for the high notes, they'll slowly start to pull the mic away as well. But I wasn't even willing to do that. But low notes, yeah, we can hit those.
I'm thinking Janet Jackson, back portion of her career, saw that many times. Big Janet guy here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to need you to do me a favor and restate the question. I forgot it entirely.
Okay. Tennessee upsetting Georgia. I think I'm talking myself into it. I left Georgia out of my playoff. I've already got my playoff picked out. I have debated, do I want to have Georgia at 12-0 in the regular season, despite the fact that like they could be a double-digit favorite for every single regular season game they have.
FSU 2014 kind of vibe.
Yes, very, very similar, where you're just kind of like, I don't know. And we're going to have these debates constantly going into the playoff rankings. And we're going to be like, how good is Georgia really? We don't really know. And I do wonder about that. And I have wondered, will they have that one slip up? Because that's a really difficult thing to carry into throughout an entire post-championship season, as we saw with FSU in 2014, where it just kind of felt like they were playing with fire. So I'm asking you if you want to get on board that take with me. Otherwise, I might just have to do it solo.
Well, here's what I will say. That game's in Athens, correct?
That game's in Athens, yeah.
Okay, I think that the opposite of what people believe is true is actually true here. I think these teams, like the big teams, Georgia, for example, here, coming off a title season, I think they're more vulnerable at home than they are on the road. I think those teams get locked in on the road, dude. But at home, I think they're more vulnerable. So if I will say the highest percentage chance of them being upset this year, I do believe, is the Tennessee game. Hold on. I am looking at my phone. It's June 6th. I'm not ready to say it yet.
Okay.
Because it's June 6th. I still got fences to ride at this time of the season, but as we get closer, I can see it.
At this time of the season, I see what you did there. I see the word you avoided. Okay.
I've got Director Colin over here, who, for all intents and purposes, the audience thinks doesn't exist, but he heard me talking Tennessee, and since it's not our show, he's allowed to exist. So there he is over there.
He's sitting there behind you, like, hey, save this. Do not come out with this on our airwaves. I get how that works.
No, we can't have that.
I understand that. Last one for you. When is the Haynes deal coming in for you? Is that imminent? Are you in talks?
Okay. I've never used this word publicly. I am vexed by this. Terribly vexed. We have a partnership with Academy. They don't sponsor this show.
Oh, you do? I've never heard that before.
No. But little known fact, Academy has a small role, very small role on Late Kick. But I think about how natural this is. I wear the same white t-shirt every show. How in the world an apparel company has not come to us and said, hey, here's a check, just make that our t-shirt? I would dive into that. We turn down advertising potential all the time because I have a right of first refusal on it. And I don't want my show to look like a NASCAR. But also, I want it to be natural because I don't want to do like boilerplate ad reads. I hate listening to that. I don't want to do it. And since they pay me a salary around here, I'm not dependent on ad money. So I only take the ones that we want. I will get down on my hands and knees in front of an apparel company. That's how bad I want an apparel company on board. And I am willing to absolutely trash their competition publicly. I'll do it. They say that some men don't have a price. I do. I'm for sale. For sale. You might as well put it on. There's plenty of room here on the forehead. I'll just put it on my forehead.
Okay, I've got two quick proposals for you. One is cuts. Are you aware of cuts? Have you been targeted by them? Have you seen what they're about?
I've heard of them. I have not used their product as of yet, but I'm open to it.
Fantastic product. You can wear your white tees. They have the highest quality t-shirt like on the market. It's fantastic. I just shout out to my brother, got me a gift card like back, Christmas or something like that. I can't remember when it was. Basic tees. You can stick with the brand, but it's just Cuts clothing. And that way you can wear your basic white tee, or you can mix it up if you want to bring a little color in. If you want to go blue, you're feeling frisky one day, and you can have that. So that's a potential. I'm just saying, if they call you, don't exactly turn them down. They've got some good things that I think that would be in your wheelhouse.
Is this Cuts with an S or Cuts with a Z?
With a C or with an S, Cuts clothing. So it starts with a C, Cuts clothing. Yeah.
So it's
great
legit.
stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it's legit. Definitely legit. The other proposal I have for you, this is a little bit further out there. If Joe Moorhead wins a New Year's Six Bowl at Akron in his next 3 years, can you become a full-time winter jacket guy to rep the zips, like with a zip up? It could be like a starter jacket or something.
Oh, wow. Well, this scenario has already been on the tip of my tongue. If Akron wins a New Year's Six Bowl game in the next 3 years, I just didn't know that this was the route we were going to go. But since I was already planning on talking about it anyway, short answer, yeah, why not?
That's all I needed. That's it.
I don't think, I know we're supposed to have 8 other bowling pins, but I think these two equal a strike for us.
Perfect. All right.
What if both happen? That's kind of my black hole perfect storm there.
You just rotate. You wear the jacket once. You could even do something like where it's a reveal where you have the jacket on for the first part of the show, and then you go with the cut shirt underneath, whatever. I'm here to be able to kind of make your life a little bit easier. When that time comes just give me a call and we'll make it happen. I know Joe would be fully on board with that as well. If you were like in his corner, Joe does well to the guys who are in his corner, me being one of them. So he would be all over that. Trust me when I say that.
Not to brag now, not to brag at all on your part. I'm speaking for you now, but yeah, I don't know how to say this. I'm kind of in some guys' corners, if you know what I mean.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. We'll leave it at that. We'll take that conversation off air. Josh, this has been awesome, man. Really, really appreciate the time. Late Kick Live. Great stuff. YouTube, podcasts, wherever. Josh is all over the place. The internet, you know where to find him. Josh Pate. Sweet, man. We are good to go. That was awesome. Yeah.